In the second part of inspecting a used bike, we're gonna do inspection on the wheels, suspension and rims and brakes. I will show you how to avoid some of the issues that can cost you serious amount of money, how to spot these. Like with the first part, these are gonna be naked eye observations with no tools, no screwdrivers, no nothing, no bolts removed, just what we can see. We'll start with a steady shot, and in a few minutes I'm gonna have to take the camera again off the tripod to show you close detail. To inspect the motorcycle's wheels and suspension, the wheel has to be off the ground. When the bike is on a center stand, it's in neutral, you can spin the rear wheel as the rear wheel is up in the air. For the front wheel, we're gonna have to lift the front wheel off the ground, and for that I have here some assorted paving stones to do that. We're gonna push down on the tail end of the bike, and that's gonna lift up the front end enough to inspect the front end and check out the brakes and everything. One more thing, if you don't have a center stand on the bike, please come prepared. This is a center stand that has been homemade. My friend Pete Campanolo helped me, and I designed it and took the measurements, and he helped me weld it. It's not a beautiful piece, but you can see it's a massively over-designed and over-engineered sturdy piece. This funny part here is made to fit a V-strom and its lower suspension, the suspension lower links, and I guess for Pete, talent just runs in the family. Campanolo spelled the same way as the Italian manufacturer for bicycle crankcases and derailleurs and such. Alrighty, let's get back to the inspection. We'll start at the rear end here. Compressing the suspension by hand won't be able to tell you much about the state of the suspension here. What you really need to do is try the motorcycle and take a couple of turns, a couple of sharp turns, see how the suspension compresses and how it holds up under sideways loading in a couple of sharp turns. Like I said before, the test ride doesn't need to be a 2-week-long cross-Canada trip. It needs to be a 100-yard test ride. Okay, so that's suspension. Wheels. Let's get started with the tire. From this direction you can see the tread depth. That's what I'm checking on a tire. And on the sidewall, what you can see is the tire's age. And I'm not looking at any kind of mysterious numbers that need to be coded. I'm looking at cracked out sidewalls. If you see crack lines running in a circular pattern along the sidewall of the tire is old and it's in danger of explosive decompression. It can fail on you at any minute, and you can see an aged cracked tire way before it fails on you on your first trip to somewhere where it takes 15 hours to walk back home. So these observations that we take here are naked eye observations, and they are fairly easy to do. They don't cost anything. You just have to do it, and it can save you a lot of money and a lot of trouble. Next thing I'm looking at is the rim and the wheel itself. On the rim, it shouldn't have any kind of visible wobble when I spin the wheel, just like this. Nice and circular all the way around. It should be free of nicks, kinks, any kind of chips in it. When you take a fall on a motorcycle and you hit, say, a curb or another vehicle with it, the rims can get bent and deformed. So I'm looking at symmetry and a nice continuous motion on the rim. In this direction it's called, what I'm looking at is radial run-out, and this way you can see the axial run-out. See if the motorcycle wheel wobbles sideways this way. Spin it. Let me just steady the camera here using the license plate. There. And if you're looking at this straight line in the middle, how much it wobbles, it doesn't, as it should. It should not have any kind of wobble in it. Okay, so the tires check out, the rims check out. Next thing to inspect is the bearings on this one. Give this one a shake this way going for axial run out, and the bearings seem to be in good condition. Last thing to do is check the drum brake. This one has a drum brake and is operated by the foot pedal here, and the brake shoes are inside this circular piece here behind this one. What I'm looking at here is wear left on the brake. The wear indicator is this piece of tab that's rusted. I'm not too concerned about this tab because it could be set anywhere. Okay, that's not really a good way to judge the brakes. That's how it works when it's operated. What I am looking at instead is the adjusting mechanism here. When the brake pads are new, you have little thread exposed here, and this spring here is quite long and uncompressed. As the brake shoes get thinner and thinner and thinner, this adjustment nut is rotated forward that way. And you can see we have a length of thread here, and we have a nearly totally compressed spring there. These brake shoes, whatever is inside, does not have much more wear left in it. And spin the wheel, looking for any kind of squealing, any kind of brake noise. I don't hear anything, so the brake shoes should be fine. And just before a test ride, just spin your wheels and check the brakes. The brakes should work, so try the brakes before you run into any trouble. Okay, so that was the rear wheel, checking the brake, the wheel and the suspension. For the front wheel, we're gonna need to put the counterweight here on the back, say protect the seat a little bit. I'm just gonna put you back on the tripod for 30 seconds so you can see a paving stone is placed here, and another one on top, and that lifts up the front enough, that lifts up the front wheel enough to inspect the front end. So come on over there and let's see the business here. Same procedure. I start with the tire tread depth. It's got say 3/16 of an inch of wear left in it at least. That's good news. Let's look at the age of the tire by checking the sidewalls. This one checks out. Pick another spot. This one checks out. It doesn't have any kind of sidewall cracking, delamination, separation. Let's check the rim out. I don't see any major or any nicks, any dents, any kind of scratches or scrapes, so that's good. Let me spin the wheel here. That little bit of noise is from the brake discs, the brake pads on the disc brake. That's normal, that's how it should sound like. You can see the wheel is rotating quite freely with very little effort. And I'm just gonna turn the bike a little bit so it wobbles less. There we go. So I can check the wheels for run out. It appears to be good this way. hold the wheels here, and I only have one hand, so I'm gonna have to spin it and then steady it. That's good. I don't want to make you too dizzy with this. This one checks out. It doesn't have any kind of wobble sideways. One more thing to check is the disc itself. I'm gonna spin it one more time and just look at the disc. From this view here, it should be nice and straight without any kind of wobble, which works perfectly and doesn't have any problems with it. Now the brakes. The brakes should have nice bolts here, not rusted in, because removing the brakes is happens fairly frequently. And the same for the axle nut and the axle ends. It's not mushroomed out, it's not beaten, it's not rusty, it's in good condition, so any tire change or patching of flat shouldn't be an issue. So this works out. Now, suspension. Oh yeah, and we should also operate the brake, but I can't kinda spin it and check the brakes at the same time, so I'm gonna have to check that in operation. What I'm looking at the control here at the brake lever is that it's got its reservoir with enough brake fluid in it, and the brake has a nice and solid firm feel. It shouldn't be squishy. The brake lever shouldn't touch the handlebar, shouldn't come close to the handlebar when it's being operated. So the front wheel, the rims, the brakes checks out. Last item, suspension. Again, hand compressing the suspension will not accomplish much. You're gonna have to try it while the bike is being ridden. However, a few compressions on the front end will help you spot obvious problems. See if you leak any fork oil. So I compressed and pumped the suspension a couple of times, and I'm looking at the forks here to see if there's any kind of fork oil leaking here. If there is any, and it is minor, the leak is very small and it runs down here and typically would drip down here, but there's nothing here, nothing to be seen, and there's not even dirt at the end of the fork there. So the front suspensions as is look good. One more thing for the suspension is the forks should be clamped in this triple clamp here, symmetrically left and right side. So this part is not so shiny. This is the aluminum. This is an aluminum piece to cap the fork. So this is the end cap, and the end cap is about 1/8 of an inch or 3 millimeters above the triple clamp. Should be the same on the other side, and it is the same on this side. So the fork tubes are of the same length, and when you look into the fork tubes, they should appear to be symmetrical and straight, undistorted, and they look good, and they are not bubbling out fork oil. One more thing for the suspension is these triple clamps holding the steering. We could have inspected it with the frame as well, but I tend to do it with the steering and front end. And this piece should have no cracks, no chips, no dents, no distortion of any kind. But like I said, eventually you're gonna have to test the bike and ride it for a couple hundred yards, looking for corrosion, to make sure that the steering geometry actually works out just as flawlessly as it does on visual inspection. These minor chips of rust I'm not too concerned about. I'm looking for structural integrity, and those don't even come close to affecting its structural integrity. So the front end looks good. Last thing to check is the steering bearings. Okay, the bearing, there's an upper bearing here and there is a lower bearing there, and the best way to check it is, I'm gonna show you. Just mount it on a tripod here so you can see, and come on in closer. There, this is what we do. The wheel is lifted off the ground, and you're gonna have to give it a shake this way, like so. And the forks have some deflection in them, but there should be absolutely no wobble felt at the steering stem and the triple clamps and the head bearings. Yeah, this one checks out. There's no problems here. So that concludes our inspection for steering, brakes, wheels, suspension.